What if your pathway to optionality doesn't mean quitting your job, but using that freedom to become a corporate senior leader and do it on your own terms? Today, one of my very first Executive Edge advisory clients reveals how he scaled his side venture past his initial goals. He then went on to build a multi-million-dollar intern engine, and he flipped the switch to master his corporate career by choice. Let's dive in and let's get you to optionality. Today's episode is sponsored by Billy Keels Advisory Services. If you want to learn more about how to make your 99 optional, just go to makeitoptional.com. Once again, that's makeitoptional.com.
Helping you build freedom without losing your edge. This is the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels.
When you follow your curiosity, amazing things can happen. Like, you know what? Today's guest has been doing this for, believe it or not, 20 plus years in his corporate life. From being the very first person in his immediate family to graduate from college to developing a track record for growing businesses. And you know what? He's also been able to define optionality to a T. In his current role as partner with creative planning, he works with business owners, executives, dealer networks, and leadership teams across the country. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, Mr. Chad Greenlee. Chad, welcome to the show.
Billy, thanks for having me. I've been a longtime fan of the show and now get to be on it. So honored.
No, I'm the one who's really, really honored. I cannot wait for the entire Going Long family to understand more about your journey. Also, too, well, very specifically, they're going to understand what it was like for someone who was one of the very first people to go through the what is today known as the Executive Edge Advisory Program, and also a lot of the different amazing things that you are doing in your current role and in life. So, if it's all right with you, man, I just want to jump right into today's conversation.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So, and I have to ask you this just right off the bat, and I just want to get right into it because so many people, I talk about without stopping, I talk about this whole concept of optionality and really what optionality means. A lot of times people are listening and they're saying, well, you know what, when you're going through optionality actually means quit your professional corporate role. I want to know from you, and I would love for you to share with the Going Long family, what does optionality actually mean to you? And more specifically, does it mean quit your job?
It doesn't. It can. I think people are often confused at what freedom actually means. And I think freedom is more of a mindset to discover for yourself. So I think back to when you and I started, one of the first lessons was like, what's your ideal day? And I gave it to you, and I was flying on a plane later after we kind of went through it, and you're like, Chad, this is BS. This isn't what your ideal day will be. And I remember it was kind of a late night flight, and so I got on my notes app. It was a little delayed, and I'm sitting on a plane, and I'm saying, man, I really don't want to be on this plane. I don't want to take any more trips. This is not what my ideal day is. I don't want it to be necessarily corporate speak. And so that was probably the biggest unlock exercise that said, I don't have to quit what I'm doing. I just have to redefine the way that I'm doing it. And I think I said it last week to someone is, if nothing changed for me as far as what I'm currently doing, how I'm executing on it, and who I'm working with, and I just continue to grow within my current role, because you can never stop growing. That's kind of one of the rules, I think, as far as freedom goes. And a lot of people will say, well, yeah, I'm just going to be, leisurely and maybe work, a few hours a day. That's not the case. But as long as you're continue growing and identifying what that looks like, even if it's currently what you're doing, and you have the freedom within those bounds to be satisfied and happy. If I explained, if nothing really changed from that responsibility until I retired, I don't think I would have any regrets. And that's at this current time. Okay. I'm at a current season, and I reserve the right to change my opinion on that because it will change, because circumstances outside of your control can change.
Yeah, you know what? And so I appreciate you just like taking that like just straight, because it is one of these things that I consistently talk about. Like optionality is about being able to have that mindset. And a lot of it is that you gave some insight, directly into one of the core exercises that we like to go through. And yes, of course, Chad, you did share that I'm not always a nice smiley guy. And because at the end of the day, when someone is a part of the program, it's really about helping you to get in, helping you to go through your transformation and helping you to get a result. But also too, one of the things, like you are in, you're in a role that you enjoyed. At the same time, you had this kind of curiosity that was going on, and you had some things that were actually happening. Can you maybe talk to us a little bit about what was going on in that other season of your life where you thought, you know what, I have this kind of thing that's going on, this curiosity, this business that I'm building on the side, and kind of things were working, but not really necessarily working. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think anytime that big events happen, you're obviously questioning the longevity of the future. And, obviously during the pandemic, I had transitioned out of a really, really challenging leadership role into an individual contributor role for a couple of years. And then right in the middle of COVID, had the opportunity to go back into a leadership role. And I was questioning whether that was something I wanted to do. Meanwhile, during all of that, I had this itch of marketing and copywriting and ghostwriting. And that's how you and I found each other, through a cohort of a writing academy. And I found out that I was really good at it. And I also enjoyed it. And was that the path that I wanted to do? And it turns out that I found that I was probably a fairly average to slightly above average writer, but I was still really good at building relationships, networking, and referrals. And that's what set me apart in the business, is because I could do that. So I didn't really have to move far from what I was currently doing to scratch that itch. But then through another acquisition within my leadership role and migrating into other opportunities, I really found that what I was doing was actually going to be pretty exhausting. So defining, if I was to formulate and build that business, it was probably going to be fairly exhausting and lead to burnout. I was getting up at 4 a.m., doing all my stuff, during COVID before I actually did my day job, as I was kind of transitioning, years ago, and then doing the day job. And then all of a sudden, doing stuff at night. And I was like, man, is this really what it's going to be like? And then, a certain set of circumstances evolved, and I was able to kind of wrap that skill set that I had learned and defined into something new, and build out a team that I was really excited about, still managing, still growing, while also producing, while also still leading, while also still doing some marketing. And I was like, and when I kind of got to the top of the ladder of that place, I looked around and I was like, you know what? I actually enjoy this view. I really am enjoying this view. And some people will say, like, you climb the ladder and all of a sudden you look around and you're like, I don't enjoy the view. And I was fortunate enough to kind of build that and say, I like this view. I like the people I'm working with. I love my leadership team. I like the team members that we have. They rely upon me. I rely upon them. And I was like, well, what more would I want to chase currently? As far as I defined, like growing within your certain role and being the best that you can be, that's always going to be an evolution. You're never going to master that.
Yeah. And so I love how you frame that, but, and I want to take one step back as well, because, and hopefully everyone, as you're listening, that you understand, really what Chad is saying here. But at the same time, I want to talk about so you got to this point, you're going through your business on the side. You had the hours that you're working in the day and the evenings, or early in the mornings and in the evenings and on the weekends. And also there's some ways of understanding how you're working. And so let's say some of the conversations that we were having, what are some of the different insights that you took from having someone who's not a part of your let's say your home life, your family life, and is also not part of your corporate life, to be able to give you some perspective on what is actually happening for you in the moment compared to where the goals are, which ultimately is optionality.
I think some of the things that you and I were able to uncover is it's self-defined. It's not defined by anybody else. Optionality it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I think when you look at the FIRE group, right? Everybody that's trying to, just get on the leisure path to optionality. If you're in the stage where you kind of look at your parents or your in-laws or other people like retiring, and then what happens after that, they kind of lose a purpose. And then if you look at the people that are working towards getting to that, well, are they going to burn themselves out to end up, get to the point and they can enjoy things? Or can you do a mix of both and be really honest with yourself, what it is you're doing, and wake up with a purpose, execute on that purpose, and then be really diligent to, define what a weekend looked like, what an evening looks like, and where you work really well. It's the biggest thing is to define it yourself and not let somebody else define it. And you helped me uncover that piece because you had kind of lived the executive life very similar to me, on planes a lot, right? Not seeing your family, coming back, burnout, and you're like, there's got to be something else. And then you're fortunate to do that something else, and you're like, well, that's not quite it. And it's kind of like, who's to tell you what it is? But if you can be really comfortable and afford yourself a little bit of breathing room, and then have somebody else like yourself hold you accountable with the decisions you make, right? And I always say that to my team that I'm leading is, these aren't my goals that I have for you. I have a vision, but you've set these goals. I'm just holding you accountable to what you want to obtain. And you have to have somebody else at this level kind of help you through that too.
And so that accountability it's a really big piece, right? It is about, as you say, the goals are defined by you or by a client or by a coworker. And then there's that person that is helping to hold accountable, right? Just putting that mirror up in front of you and also to reminding you, well, these are the things that we agreed and that you wanted when we got started and moving forward. Well, how was it, just speaking of that accountability, because you and I have both done, and this is just like, you can do cohorts, you can do small groups, you can do a number of things. Like I choose today, and like you talked about, the context, right, is choose to continue to work with clients in a one-on-one perspective. Can you maybe talk to what that experience was like in terms of working one-on-one, or understanding you and the context of your life and towards the goals and the company that you were working at, the company that you were looking to build at the time, just how that one-on-one affected you or how it impacted you?
I think when you have somebody that's you kind of have a goal for the week or what you're trying to accomplish, and what I discovered is it's kind of a Miyagi moment, right, from the Karate Kid, where you're having me do all these things, and I'm kind of like, Billy, like, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then 3, 4, 5 lessons in, you regurgitate back, like, here's all the things that you've learned. And if you don't realize what we've actually defined, sometimes it's hard to see it when you're in it. And I think that's probably the biggest thing is, I'm balancing all of these things that I thought I wanted. And then you're like, well, Chad, really, we've kind of come to the fruition that owning your own business, building your own business, doing all these things is probably not the best long-term for you. And that's really when I decided and made the leap to try and pursue like partnership and say, I think that's probably the best path for me. And it gives me buy-in, and it gives me gratification. It gives me something really to move forward to, where I didn't really think that before. And again, there's always these seasons that you're in life that will, that you can't control and will affect kind of your view. But when you have somebody else that's regurgitating your words back to you in a way that you couldn't say it and clarify it, that just changes everything. And then you're free to make really decisions. And it's more important to say, in my case, what you're going to stop doing and be really comfortable with it. Even though it's something
sorry. And I know you just said it, but just in case someone's running on a treadmill or swimming or something like that, can you just repeat what you just said? Because it is literally platinum advice.
Yeah. It is more important at that time when you discover it to say what you're going to stop doing than what you're going to keep doing. And when you make that decision and you become super comfortable with it, everything else filtered through that becomes so incredibly easy and unapologetic to anybody that does it. You're going to be more confused to other people than you are to yourself. And it's so free.
So having that feeling of even more freedom. And one of the other things that I don't think gets enough conversation is as you're being able to invest your time, you're able to start to see what's happening from the business on the side, as well as what's happening in your day role. Can you maybe talk about something that happened? Because you talked a little bit about freedom now, but also one of the things it happened with you, and I see it happen with other clients. But can you talk to us maybe about what it does for your ability to just take one idea from your side business and to be able to integrate that into or not into your full-time role and vice versa?
Well, a long time ago, I developed kind of a personal self-development budget every year. So I kind of say, these are the things that, and then I'll step back. You remember when smartphones came about?
Yeah.
And I had a colleague that says, well, I'm not going to put email on my smartphone because, the employers, they're not paying for my smartphone. And I said, and I kind of thought about that and I was like, oh yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That used to be the old way. But if it made you much more profitable or close more business for yourself, even though you were paying for yourself, wouldn't that make sense? And so then I'd heard this idea of the same concept of like a self-development budget. Well, if I invested in my own self every year and chose what I wanted to do, and that skill set could translate to my employer benefiting for it and me benefiting for it, doesn't that make sense? And so I started doing that. And what it set me up for, and it's not always a direct correlation. Luck is about setting yourself up for when the opportunity presents itself, you're the most ready. And, by doing some of those skills, ghostwriting, learning marketing, copywriting, all sorts of things, I'm not the best at it. But when all of a sudden we may be instituting a new software platform, well, guess who became kind of the executive champion and now is kind of the administrator, and then developed a team that they could hire to help execute through that software, through that top of funnel, through that marketing. And then now I've become a resource to other business development team. I couldn't have done that had I not gone through all of that, a few years ago and really leaned into that muscle. So it wasn't necessarily that it was going to directly translate. It just set me up for an opportunity to present itself. And I'm like, I want that. I can do that. That makes me really happy to do that. And I think it's going to keep expanding as another opportunity.
So it really sounds like most high achievers, high performers, you didn't put that development process in someone else's hands. It was really in your hands. And at the same time, it was a matter of, okay, how is what you're investing in yourself? It allowed you to perform at a higher level, and that was performing at a higher level in your role. it puts you in positions to also be more promotable, more projects or more visibility, let's say, or recognition. And then also to from those learnings, you're able to also make impacts inside and outside the walls of the employer. Is that correct? Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah. I think one of the secrets that if I could, that one of my very best friends and myself always talk about is, am I valuable and am I available? Am I valuable and am I available? So if I'm valuable to a firm and I'm available to execute on that, well, then you're probably always going to be employable.
Yeah, like that. One of the things, and I sort of talked about it because I talked about being able to explain or define optionality to a T. From what I understand, you are also an extremely, I think the right word is competitive golfer at a very high level. You also competed at a very high level. And I'm just curious what that sport, right? Because I want to bring that in and just that being able to have that mindset, how that has actually helped you in your role, or even when you thought about the development of a side business. Because I find something unique about anyone who has competed at a very high level, whether it's individual and or collective team sport.
Mm-hmm. Direct correlation for sure. My really good friend at the time, we grew up together, same age. He had all the resources to be a really competitive golfer, and his parents could afford to fly him and do all those things to play in what they called AJGA tournaments. He would be to Georgia on a Friday and come back on a Sunday, and he was recognized by D1 prospects. I didn't have those resources growing up. Mm-hmm. And then one summer before I had the opportunity to play collegiately at a lower level, which is completely fine. I think if you find a place that you can get the experience and actually shine at, you're going to be more satisfied. And that's kind of what I was going for. Mm-hmm. Well, I went one summer from like a 6 handicap to a +2. And that's an 8-stroke improvement. So, if scratch is where most people, I was performing 2 strokes better than that. Mm-hmm. And it all boiled down to a coach. That was my first time really working with a coach. I was 18 years old. It was one whole summer. And I remember we stepped up on the first tee and he said, Chad, or the practice range, he said, Chad, for the next 30 days, you're going to hit every club in your bag. It can go 50 yards, it can go 100 yards, it can go 150, and you're never going to hit it more than that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Like, this is the worst thing on the planet. And at the end of 30 days, he's like, I'm not going to see you until you've done that. So every single day, I would like every club in my bag, right? And when we got to like day 30, 35, we finally got back together. I remember stepping up, and it was with a pitching wedge to the 100-yard sign. Is this big metal sign. And I said, watch this. And I hit that sign one bounce 9 out of 10 times. And he goes, I think you're ready. and I walked on to the qualifying round at our college. And after 4 days of qualifying, I qualified as a freshman as the number 1 spot and beat the senior All-American on the team and shot a really bad score in my first round. But it proved to me that was a fundamental approach that I didn't learn about or didn't know about and had to learn through the process of how to get good at something by doing something that you didn't know how to do, but you had to execute every day through failing and the fundamentals of learning how to do something that what I tell a lot of people is everybody else says they're doing those things. They're not doing them. And if you can execute on those that they say and are not doing, you're going to leapfrog over them.
Love it. Absolutely love it. So, number one, being able to go through those reps, being able to then use that mindset and also apply it to what you're doing in your role, is also one of the ways that you continue to master skills, which I think is great. One of the things that, and I know I've asked you this before, but I'm going to ask you in front of a worldwide audience. So, what was your thought process when you were deciding whether or not, because you talked about, having your own personal development budget, and you talked about it at a certain point in your business on the side that you were trying to figure things out. But what was it that you were actually, the thought process to figure out, okay, well, actually, I think Billy can help move me from where I am today to get more clarity to decide on where I want to go tomorrow?
Well, two things. You and I jived really well. And I think you got to find somebody that is always a year to maybe a few years ahead of where you kind of wanted to be at the time. That's kind of the sign of a good mentor. Can I be mentored by this person? Whenever we talk, are we learning something from each other? And I think in a good coach, I actually have another coach right now that I've been working with on the business development side. And he asked me, last week, he's like, Chad, give me some ideas. And I gave him some ideas and he gave me some ideas. So when you're both learning from each other, I think is a key point. And then finally, I think, do they have a process? I always look for a process. Do they have an idea in mind that, they're not just coming to me and it's not just like a lay back on the couch, tell me all your thoughts type session. It's more of, hey, I've got a process. It's not rigid, but it's defined. And I think through this, you're going to at least pick up a nugget or two that you can execute on after every time we meet.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And so, yes, it is about understanding the individual, having the frameworks to follow and being able to identify those and then adapt them to the individual person to make it very unique, number one. And then I do appreciate what you talked about being ahead of the game. So one other thing before, because I really want to talk about what you're doing today at Creative Planning in your partner role. But one of the other things that you mentioned before, that you had this business on the side, you had the results, because most people would think to themselves, well, Chad, if you're in your role today, it means that your side business thing wasn't working well. Could you maybe give some insight into where your side business was when we started, where it finished, and then also that kind of, you talked to us about how you decided to be where you are right now. But I don't want anybody to go away thinking that you're in your role for any other reason than, So how were the results from when we started working together and when we stopped working together in that regard?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. One, it had just got it started. We were right around kind of the COVID times, and we were just kind of kicking it off. And I was like, hey, I just want to kind of pay for itself and be busy. Can I earn $1? Right? Is kind of the thing. And you kind of said, Chad, that's a really lousy goal. And I said, yeah, it kind of is. So what should it be? And I said, well, what if I could make the salary that I made right out of college? What would that look like? And I think within kind of the first 90 to 120 days, that was starting to come into realization. And then it got kind of busy and was showing signs that this had some legs. And then that honestly made me nervous because I wasn't in the position to really make the decision of go all in. And I didn't know if I wanted to. And so I said, you know what, let's scale back on this a little bit. And actually, let's just finish it up. And I think I've got some really good opportunities in the future. We've got an acquisition coming where there may be more opportunities presenting themselves. I really have got to devote myself to that energy. And I said, you know what? It's okay. It's a skill that's always there. If I ever needed it, I know that I've proved to myself that I can do it. And I made a conscious decision to say, all right, I think I've got more opportunity where I'm going at a time. Again, seasons change.
Yep.
And it's okay. I've proved to myself that muscle is there if I've ever wanted to it. And interesting enough, Billy, I think I've told you this. If I got turned down 7 times in my previous job, where I worked 11 years for leadership roles. And what the feedback that I got is, hey, Chad, you had never really crushed it in a sales role. When I say crushed it, like, outperformed your quota 6 months in and blah, blah, blah. And I had said to myself, yeah, you're right. I never have. And I said, but if I do that, does it afford me a leadership role? And they're like, probably. And so I said, fine. Put a hand in my face, shooting on the basketball court. I shoot better, no problem. And for the next 9 months, I devoted all of my energy. I traveled all the time. I went everywhere. I made my 50 calls before 10 o'clock every morning. I was doing all the right things. And lo and behold, the next year, absolutely crushed it. And what happened? I got offered the vice president of sales job for the largest division in that company, managing a few sales teams up and down kind of the East Coast. And what I realized is I don't need and want to always be that person for those years, but it showed me that anytime that I need to be and want to turn it on, I can. Yeah. But I really like being the other person, but I can always flip that switch and it proved to me if I ever need it and ever want it, I can.
I love that, man. I absolutely love that. And I appreciate you sharing, giving that insight. And once again, it is about optionality. It is about defining what is the important part to you, and how are you defining that freedom, and the fact that your results improved significantly. Memory serves me right. I think it was at least, well, and like you said, it was early days, but more than 3 times, something like that. So, which I think is great. So, but at the end of the day, it's like you said, it's about being able to have the choice to do what you want to do next. And I appreciate that. What about ideas, specific ideas that you took maybe from what you were building on the side, and you're able to now integrate that? And we know that you love being able to grow teams, being able to lead, sales organizations, interact with clients, executives. Talk to us about some of the goodness that you're continuing to bring. And for instance, in your current role, in your partner role at Creative Planning, and also how you're helping others.
Yeah. I think it's in ways that you don't foresee and can't really line up on a piece of paper. But as long as your skills are there and you're like, I think I can build this. And so about a year and a half ago, I managed a national account, and I still do to this day. That's my producer role. I was also doing some other association work, helping to build associations and other networks, and really defining and enabling the rest of our team as far as how to work within those associations and develop a one-to-many approach. And then we decided that on our business development team, we wanted to have an intern. And I said, well, the only thing that I really know how to kind of teach an intern how to do is cold call, develop their own sales process, and execute on setting appointments. And so we hired one intern. I remember it was January 14th. I was down in Orlando, and I met him at noon and walked through, and I said, hey, I don't know where this is going to go, but through your time here, I can show you one thing, and it's a skill that'll live with you forever. Well, in about a week and a half, he was setting his first appointments. He was making calls. We were having a good time. And in March, we hired a second intern. And then in May, we had 2 more interns start. And then by June 1st of last year, I had my first full-time individual on that team. So we had 1 full-time and 4 interns during last summer. 2 of those interns turned into full-time in the fall. We hired another. And now I have a new set of interns, some full-time people, and we're, I think we've set around 360 appointments. It's led to, a few $1 million in revenue that wouldn't have been had for a team. And I think that's kind of, when you take on a role that is investing in the company and being part of the company, you want to kind of define what it is that you can uniquely contribute to them. And I think through all of my skill sets that I've developed over the time, I kind of say this is the most fun that I'm having leading a group of individuals, because you really get to see them go from not really having that business skill set, but having the aptitude. I hire for competitiveness, individual accountability, to making success and seeing it through, and then setting that up for the future. Two of my full-time individuals have already kind of advanced in their careers, and one's a full-time assistant D1 soccer coach and has said this skill set's going to help me recruit. Another one went on to be a talent coordinator at an advertising agency, and this is going to help them recruit. So they've gone through kind of the toughest part of the job, and I've had a really good defined process in doing that for them.
Well, just being able to see the impact that you continue to make, it makes me happy. And I know that the just the amount of energy that you put into, the defining and helping to develop talent and promote talent is something that comes through over and over again. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us. I don't know, Chad, was there anything else that you want to share with us that you feel is important, either what you're doing in your role or just anything else that I have not asked before I have maybe a wrap up question?
No, I think we've outlined it all before. I think the biggest takeaway is when you think of kind of you're listening to all the popular opinions of what it should look like and could look like. I think it's very important for you to develop your own definition. And I will say that's a hard thing to do solely on your own without kind of your board of advisors. So seeking help on that and making sure that you have support, it makes it a stronger decision and definition when you ultimately find it. And it is a journey. It's not a destination.
All right. I love that, man. I appreciate you sharing that. Chad, I have one last question for you. And it's just something that I myself have been through in life. And I used to think everything went perfectly. Every single time that I set my goals, I achieved those goals or overachieved those goals. Well, there was a moment in my life where there were challenges that were happening both personally and professionally. What that did for me is it helped me to realize that when things are going really well, we tend to not pay attention because they're going well. But when things are not going according to plan, we tend to we think that it's going to last forever. But it's those moments where we really have to tell ourselves like something is to kind of snap us out of it, right? No matter, even if you're listening to all the people that care the most about you in the world. And so I want you to project 3 years from now, and in your partner role, you're going to continue to see things that are really, really great, but there's also going to be these moments that are a little bit challenging. And so I want you to talk to us or just share with us that one thing that you know that you're going to say, but when you're looking back 3 years or whenever you need to hear it, you need to hear something, that one sentence, that one, thing that's going to get you from the trough, just get you to start moving in the other direction. Would you share with us what that one thing that you know you need to tell yourself is?
It's control the simplest things that you can control and don't overcomplicate your first step.
Love that. Control the simplest things and don't overcomplicate the next step or the first step. So, Chad, man, this has been really, really, really just for me, it's kind of like a full circle moment. So being here and being able to have you share the things that you have continued to do. I mean, we talked about it from the very beginning, whether it was first in your direct family to be able to graduate from college, or being able to continue to follow your curiosity, and that following your curiosity helped you to in your corporate role, be able to get to partner, help you to be able to also develop other talent, help to continue to grow, whether we're talking about leaders or your partner network, and so many different life lessons that you've also been able to take through being able to invest in yourself and be able to grow individually and take that personal growth and be able to also share that with your employer and moving back and forth. And so, I know because I know you and I get to stay in touch with you. But there's so many other people that are wanting to understand more about you, more about your journey, and also what you are continuing to do in your partner role at Creative Planning. And so they're saying, Billy, just be quiet. Ask him the question. So Chad, what's the best way to find out more about you, how we can get involved in your world, and also to the things that you're doing at Creative Planning? How can we find you, man?
Yeah, probably the best place is DM on LinkedIn. I get a lot of one-time DMs, but if you DM me a couple times, I'll respond. That's what I teach. I post occasionally, not always consistently, when I have something to say. So I don't do it just on something to say. So follow and those sorts of things. But LinkedIn is usually where it's probably the least noisy to find me. My inbox is pretty noisy.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. So listen, everybody, and when it comes to LinkedIn, I'm just going to ask you, if you're going to reach out, when you reach out to Chad, make sure that you leave him a personalized invitation, number one. And then when you reach out in the DMs, if it's not the first time, make sure it's the second time that you follow up with him. So Chad, I do want to say, just on behalf of the entire Going Long family and myself, I want to say thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart for deciding to invest your time with me and with us today. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you, Billy.
All right. Fantastic. And Going Long family, appreciate you being here and checking out me and Chad. While you are getting ready to listen to another episode, I'll be here preparing for the next one. So go out, make it a great day, and thank you very much.